About 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was walking around with my friend. For the sake of confidentiality, I'll call him James. Anyways, me and James were just walking around because we had almost nothing to do. James proposed we went to these houses that were being built close to our local park. It was about a 10-minute walk to the park and another 2 or so to get to these construction houses. We walked through the park and through the trees to a big open area of dirt where the houses were being built. The park was surrounded by wooded areas. We pretty much just explored the houses and were pretty much just admiring how they looked. And we started talking about if we were the ones who owned the house. After about an hour of messing around in the houses, trash containers, and on the cat vehicles that they left there, it started to become dark because we had lost track of time. I told James we should head back because it takes a little bit to actually get back to this house. After the short 3-minute walk to the park, I noticed some guy who was just sitting down looking at us. James thought it was one of his friends, so he started walking over, and after realizing that it wasn't him, he just met back up with me and we kept walking towards the house. After only a few minutes of walking, James turned around and noticed the same guy we saw at the park was walking on the same dirt path as us. He was a good 100 to 200 feet back, so we didn't think much of it, even though we kept joking about him following us so he can kill us. After we got off the dirt road, we took a right and the man behind us also took the turn. Getting a little superstitious, because it was almost pitch black, we sped up a little. I noticed early on when he took the right turn to follow us off of the path, he was no longer 100 feet away. He was more like 50. I told James, and to test it, we took a longer way to the house. It had a lot more turns. Every turn we took, the guy also took. We finally had arrived at the house, and as soon as we got inside, we looked out the window and didn't see him. We thought it was just a coincidence. We just stayed in and played Gears of War 2. After a while, I got bored and told him I was just going to watch Netflix in the living room. James continued to play games while I was in the living room, and I noticed about halfway through my movie that there was kind of a blurry shadow sitting right next to the back door. Right next to the living room behind the couch is where the door was. I thought it was Bandit, James's dog, so I paused my movie to go and let him in, but when I got close, I saw it was actually a person. At first I was thinking it had to be James because he's tall, but as I kept walking closer, I noticed it was some random dude I've never seen before, staring dead into my eyes. I instantly freaked out because James had the house alone for the week. The second I started to run, he tried opening the back door. I ran to James and told him, and then he went upstairs and called the police. I acted tough, but I was scared shitless, and honestly, I was freaking out. We heard him banging on the glass a few more times, and then the banging stopped. Shortly after that, we heard the sirens, and I had never felt more at ease. The police officers searched the area, but they came up empty-handed and just told us that he was gone. Even though the officer told us we were safe, we still called my mom and had her pick us up. That was the last time I went over to stay the night at James's house, and I always feel bad that he has to live there. People are crazy, and if you ever run into anything like this, please stay safe and make proper choices. I don't know exactly how to start this story. About 3 months ago, I was staying the night at my girlfriend's house. It was a Friday, so there were kids running around her neighborhood like every other weekend. It was getting to be around 9 at night, and my girlfriend's parents were on a date or something, and it was just me and her little sister. We were in my girlfriend's room, and we were watching Family Guy. We just kind of randomly started making out, and it started escalating to something else. But just as I was about to take off my shirt, I looked at her window and froze. She looked and saw my confused look. She glanced at the window to see what I was looking at, and she also noticed the 10 to 12-year-old kid watching us with his face pressed against the glass. The rest of the night, my girlfriend didn't want to hug or kiss or anything because of that weird kid. So thank you, little 10-year-old, for ruining my night and creeping my girlfriend out to the point where she won't kiss me at her house anymore. I met this kid, who for the story I will call Joey, only 3 weeks ago. He was new, and if you know, I always try to welcome new students. It's in one of my other ones that I tell you that. He came to my school from California and was in the same grade as me. Joey, I could tell, was weird, but I brushed it off because, in a way, I thought everybody was or had been at one point in their life. Anyway, I showed him around and introduced him to some other students and teachers, just so he could feel a little more comfortable at school. He randomly started hanging out with me during lunch, even if I was walking across the street to get it, but I honestly didn't care. I saw what I thought was him getting along with my other friend, who I'll call Ethan. After a few days of him following us and talking to us, Ethan had come over to me privately during lunch. He was telling me that Joey was showing him, as Joey called them, memes. But they were videos of weird stuff like cats dying or the two men, one ice pick video. Don't search it if you get nauseous easily. I casually brushed this off because Ethan was the weird friend of our group, so I thought he was joking. It had been about 2 weeks since Joey arrived, and I had noticed that he was starting to follow me and Ethan more excessively. It got to the point where he would sometimes follow me or Ethan when we walked home. Me and Ethan lived close to each other, and it got to the point where he literally stood outside mine or Ethan's house. I didn't want to be mean, but I went out to talk to Joey, and I told him that my mom said we can't hang out together anymore. And although he didn't follow us during lunch, he still followed me home. I got angry and told him that he was fucking weird, and I told him to leave me alone, which made him mad, and this crazy asshole actually came to my door and opened it and tried to walk in. I, for some reason, didn't call the cops, but when he got out of my house, I called my mom and explained the whole situation. She moved me in with my dad, and I'm currently in the process of changing schools. I have not seen this kid since, and my mom said he hasn't showed back up at the house in the past few days. Hopefully we keep it that way, and I never see that real-life psycho ever again. The cat videos were literally cats being suffocated, drowned, and mutilated, and I never want to see anything like this.